Hello everyone, it's Miss Darling in the studio. I thank you for being here with me, and let's have some fun. I spent the other day making a whole bunch of these little dangles that I thought turned out so cute. I'm going to show you how I made these, but then we're going to make some others in different sizes and shapes, and just play around today and have some fun. So join me, get out your crafts and craft along with me, will you? And be sure and like and make a comment, ask a question if you have any along the way. I'll be happy to answer them. And I hope you're all well and doing great. And let's get started. The first ones I made were little square ones, and I had 3 pieces of thin chipboard that had come in some packaging, glued the 3 together, and so I would have a thicker little piece. And then I cut out these squares. They're 1 1/4 inch by 1 1/4 inch, and then I glued just some little torn snippets of some antique book paper I have in my stash, added the number with a stamp, and then I had cut out these little florals. I had to take bigger florals and then just cut away the tops of them in order to get the scale down to what I needed. And I wasn't able to do that with everything. You can see that this is a very large flower instead of these 2 small rosebuds. Anyway, and then on the back, I just did some stamping on the back, and when I was all done, I attached a jump ring. And you'll need, if possible, some jewelry tools to do that with effectively and quickly. And so I have those on hand. And then I just covered front, back, and sides with some Mod Podge when I was all done. But one thing I do need to point out is that when you put an acrylic surface on them, like the Mod Podge or anything else, it's probably going to darken your substrate. So, you know, just be aware of that. You can see it's not much, but it's a little darker than what I started with. So anyway, some of them I left squared off, and then there's some of them I just rounded the corners with scissors, and you can do as you like. And I have now a whole bunch of dangles that I can use on various journals. I've already explained to you what I did, and we'll just do one up real quick and then move on to some other things. Here's my little container of bits of antique book paper, and I found that going with some of the lighter paper gave me a little more options than with the darker. It's a little hard for small focal points to show up, and it's just easier to find things you can work with if your background is a little lighter. So in the future, I probably, might even make the card itself out of white or off-white cardstock instead of this brown. But to each his own. So all I did was, just rip off a snippet of paper and glue it down. And then I have these fairly large numbers, and you'll need an acrylic block, most likely when you're working with the acrylic stamps. So I'm just going to pull off a 3 is one of my favorite numbers. Don't know why. And I'm going to stamp it on the side to leave room to put a floral or something on the other side. Now you can wait and stamp at the very end, and that might even be advisable, but I didn't do that then, and I didn't do it now either. You will also need an owl to make a hole in order to have something to thread your jump ring through. Okay, now it's plain on the back. I'm going to leave it plain for the moment. And let's see, what did I do then as far as I have this drawer full of flowers, and so I looked for, yellow doesn't really show up well enough to use it, and so you have to kind of look for something in a darker color. And see, you know, most of them are way too big, but here's one that has, hopefully you can see it, it has a red rosebud sticking up high, so I'm going to cut that off and use that right in there. Since I really don't have all that much that's small enough, you can, you know, use something a little bit bigger and, you know, have it bleed off one side, but I was hoping to find something that is better scaled so I could get it to fit on. So I just trimmed some of that excess off, and this is a sticker, so I'm going to just pull that off, and it comes apart real easy when I'm not filming. Okay, there we go. And I'll just lay my little rosebud in there alongside the three, and burnish it all down. Flip it over and trim off the overhangs. See? And there you go. And then I just take my owl and I'll set this down on a grid so I can easily find the center, and drop down about a 1/4 of an inch or so, and press in till my owl goes all the way through, and then I kind of come back and press the other way a little bit. That kind of helps push the part that you're pushing out of the way. I want to kind of make them go back in a bit if you can, so they're not sticking out. Alright, and so once you have your hole and it's decorated, you could go ahead at this point and put the Mod Podge on, or whatever it is you're going to seal them with. I think I'm going to go ahead and trim this just a little bit on the corners, just kind of round it off a little bit. Here's my Mod Podge, and I like to, you know, just stick it on a sheet of wax paper. Anything will do where the Mod Podge isn't going to stick to it, or if it does, at least you'll be able to pop them off real easily. So I just cover the top and the sides. All going in one direction. And then, you know, set that off to dry. And if you're doing a whole bunch of them at once, by the time you get the last one covered, the first ones will be dry enough you can flip them over and do the back. But for now, I'm just going to set that off here to the side. Alright, okay, now on to some other sizes and shapes here. I have more. So I have these other squares that I had cut out, and I did all my trimming out off camera, because when you're working with a blade, you know, like a box cutter, these things are very sharp. It's very easy to cut yourself, and so you want to, you know, do it at a time and place when you can devote your full focus to what you're doing. I have cut myself as I was cutting something off on camera, and that was because I was talking and not paying as close attention. So I decided, you know, I don't think I'm going to cut with a blade off on camera too much anymore. I'll just do that off camera where I can just really focus on what I'm doing. So anyway, I got these other little squares cut out, and then I just trimmed off the corners at an angle instead of rounding them off as I did with this other group. So I have those, a little bit different shape, and then I have these more oblong ones. These are 1 inch wide by 1 5/8 inches long. And so it's a nice size. And then these are I think 1 1/4 by 1 1/4, and then with the corners trimmed off. So I'm going to start with this one, and this time I'm going to put some Mod Podge down first. Several months ago, I suppose last year, I did an entire journal devoted to one of my favorite artists, Modigliani, and I had this wonderful lady's face left over and had no place to use her, and so I decided I'm going to use her right here on one of these, and I'm going to Mod Podge her in there, and then add her as a dangle to that journal once it's all done and dry. So you can decorate this anyway. You know, I mean, there's a zillion ways you can decorate them. If you're doing this as a business and you want to do these to, you know, sell them, or, you know, to add to journals that you're selling, then my advice is to try to decorate them in ways that most women would appreciate. Not everybody's going to appreciate a stylized woman's face like this. But this I'm doing for myself. What I do for things I think I might one day sell, I would, more go towards flowers or butterflies or, something generic like that that most women like. And I'm going to set that off to dry. All right. Now, for these others, I have all these little scraps of paper that are odds and ends torn off from other projects, and I throw them all in a little box, waiting for a time like this when I just need something small to add in somewhere, and I don't have to go, just rip something off of a bigger sheet or out of a bigger piece of fabric. I've got all these odds and ends right in an organized spot, and so I just pull that out and rummage through it till I find something. Here's a container that has fabric odds and ends and bits and pieces, and then here's my little container with bits and pieces of paper. I don't know why I'm not getting any glue coming out. Don't be difficult. So I'm just going to drop that down there, on there, and I will take one of these other guys, and let me do this. And then maybe look for something longer to throw on one of these longer pieces. I don't even at this point really know what's going to come next. I'm just just putting stuff down, and I will find something to go on it later. Now, of course, doing it this way, you're going to wind up with a hodgepodge of all sorts of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking to wind up with a bunch of pieces that are color coordinated, then you'll want to kind of do them quite similar. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I keep all these little corner things that I've cut off my tags, and this is one of the ways that I'll use up some of those little corners that I snipped off. There's a piece of vellum. Will that show through? I think maybe it might. So we'll cover the entire thing with glue this time. The glue's going to show through at first, and then it will dry clear and you won't see that. I think this whole thing got a little skewed when I originally cut it. And let's just trim it down a bit. I have some green butterflies that I'm hoping to use, so maybe I'll throw in a little bit of this tissue paper with some green foliage on it for background. I'm just pulling out all different kinds of things because I want you to see how varied you can go with these things. Some you'll like better than others, and that's okay. I always have my favorites too. Okay, now let's get a few of those down. I'm going to just do one more because I see this fun little piece here. Maybe I could add that somewhere. I don't guarantee to solve all of these in one sitting in front of the camera, but we'll go as far as we can. All right. Got some little butterflies here. also have some little vases. I don't know if I want to use that up. Have that upside down. I think it shows up better against a plain background. I have this rust butterfly. I'm not seeing anything that excites me. It could maybe work. Got some of these little squares that I've had sitting around for a long time. They could maybe be used. I think we could use you there. I always want to try and stay away from where you're going to put your hole. Don't put something really important up there where the hole will go. You'll be sorry if you do. I think my butterflies are just not strong enough for me. Looking for something that will really pop as a focal point. I got that upside down. Oh, okie doke. Well, that was interesting. I thought something was wrong. Boy, if you can't read it from the front side, don't stamp it because you'll be sorry if you do. Okay, I'm not going to try to do all of these for you. Obviously, that would take forever. But now that I have 3 done, then I'll just go ahead and at least get the jump rings put on. I'm just going to go with that being upside down. This is junk journaling, and we lay things upside down, sideways, right side up, you name it. We do it all. And let's not forget these 2 that I have up here drying. So I have my Modigliani woman and this number 3 with the rose buds. So when you get this far, you're going to need some jump rings, and they need to be big enough to go through the thickness of your substrate, leaving extra room for either another jump ring or a chain or a piece of string or something to go through them. And so I'll use these. Cannot give the size to you in millimeters. It's about not quite a ½ inch, about a 3/8 inch jump ring, whatever that turns out to. I think they're usually always measured in millimeters, which I never have gotten the hang of. So you take your jump ring, you'll need 2 little pliers, and you set them on either side of where the jump ring is cut. And you don't pull them apart. You press one side away from you and hold the other side steady. You don't want to pull them apart, because if you go this way, you'll never get them back where you want them to go. I didn't do that quite far enough, so I'm going to do it again. You have to create an opening big enough to get your substrate through. Let's see if I can do this by hand. Oop. There it comes. Then once you got it through the hole, put your pliers back on and then just pull it back into position. And then I like to kind of turn the ring so that the connection is at the back. And there you have it. That's all there is to it. I usually do this part easier with my fingers. Now I have a longer one done. And of course you can collage on the back, you can stamp on the back, you can use fabrics. I had some fabrics pulled out here that maybe I'll use for background, and then put a butterfly on top. My butterflies are not as bold as I really need them to be a focal point, but maybe the lighter ones will pop against a dark background. A lot of them seem to be a little bit too big. I would have to crop a little too much off. I think they might look funny. Now you can also do these round. I have a bunch of kind of textural 1-inch round circular things already here that I could glue down on something round. I also have some round florals that I just cut out with my 1-inch hole punch. I have one of these simple little things, and you can just punch away and get a whole bunch of things done nicely that way. Now, I don't advise trying to use these to cut through thick cardstock. I tried that once and completely broke my punch. So don't do that. You may have to cut things, or maybe cut several out of thin paper and then glue them on top of each other to build up your thickness that way, or cut them out by hand. That's kind of not as ideal, because whenever you do it by hand, you never get it to look really professional. But I'm going to get my Modigliani lady here done. I think I might have some leftover of this, I might glue that on the back to dress this one up a bit. In the meantime, now you can put your Mod Podge or acrylic seal on before you put your jump rings on or after. I've done it both ways. It's probably better to do it before, but since I have done it both ways and it doesn't really matter to me, I do it when I'm in the mood for a specific process. I'm not always in the mood to wrangle with jump rings. You can see why. Why don't you want to go through for me? Come on. There. You can dress them up with lace. I was going to do these with some paper lace, but I decided that the substrate wasn't dark enough to suit me. I wasn't going to be able to see the pattern of my lace very well, and so I opted not to do that. And here's my gal, and I believe I will sorry for the mess on my table. I know it's looking pretty bad, but c'est la vie. Getting a little messy here. Okay, there you have it. Hopefully I've shown you enough. You can fly on your own now and have a lot of fun. These are great to add to your journals. I'm sure there's many more ways you can utilize little dangles like this, and you know, even if you just added one into a card for some lucky lady on Mother's Day, or whatever, you know, it would be treasured forever because it was handmade by you. And with that, hope you give this video a like and a share if you find the content helpful and valuable to you. I'm sure others will too. I'd appreciate that. And be sure and leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking and feeling. Maybe what you'd like me to show you in the future. And be sure and visit my Etsy store for resources for your projects. Also, the description box below this video has more resources, so be sure and look there. Until next time, this is Miss Darling calling this a wrap. Bye-bye.